Kathy, and Aaron was successful. Okay, our next H.
Brenda Herget from the Butte 4Cs, Butte Community Council.
IJKLMN. Jordan Ledoux from, Jordan Ledoux from Butte 4Cs, Butte Community Council.
Cindy Kaylin Green from ADLC Best Beginnings in Anaconda.
Welcome.
Amy Lohman. Amy Lohman, Mineral County Health Department.
Hi, I'm Sarah Crum. I'm with Greater Gallatin United Way with ECCC, the Early Childhood Community Council of the Greater Gallatin area.
Welcome. All right, I think we're on to NOPQR.
Alex Rhodes from Butte 4Cs, Butte Community Council.
I'm Deborah.
Okay.
I'm here with representing Funders for Montana's Children.
All right, welcome, Deb.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to take a few seconds. This is Sally. I want to thank Deb because later on, not so far, our focus for today's group is really to talk about engaging those business community partners. And so Deb has graciously been willing to join our call because she works a ton with our business partners. And so she might be our expert to be able to ask questions of. And we have her for 45 minutes. So we're really, really grateful that she took time out to join us, just because it's really valuable to have people on the call that really work with the business partners all the time. So thanks so much, Deb.
Thank you, Sally.
Cool.
Yeah, so why don't we just segue in? So my name is Erin Barstow. I'm with the 0 to 5 initiative. And I help facilitate this call with Sally and Stephanie. And did we get through everyone, Sally and Steph?
I think we have a few more.
Okay.
Yeah, we have some more. I know Monty is on here.
Well, I'm waiting for the T's.
Okay. Calling all players. You're up, Monty.
All right, Monty Turner, Mineral County Health Department, 0 to 5 Initiative and Healthy Communities Coalition. Just
Thank you.
Time with all of you guys.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And this is Anna Semple with A Healthy Start Missoula, our local best council.
Okay.
And hi, I'm Kim Youngquist, and I am also with the Best Beginnings out of Richland County.
Fantastic. Welcome. And of course, I'm Sally Tillman with the Early Childhood Services Bureau. So I think maybe that's it. We've got our crew introduced.
This is June Beartusk, and I'm with the Northern Cheyenne Best Beginnings Coalition.
Oh, fantastic, June.
Thanks. Okay, so as Sally mentioned, we have Deb until 4:15, I think. So without further ado, we definitely wanted to jump into this conversation around engaging businesses, and then we can follow up with updates and some other logistic stuff at the end of that call. But so Deb, we'd love for you to be part of this conversation. I think that other folks have questions or topics for conversation to contribute, but we'd love for you to explain a little bit more about what you do and what your role is, and then maybe we'll start there and see if folks have questions. And it's just it's a loosely formed discussion, and we'll see where it goes. But you can go ahead and start us off, please.
Great. Well, I'm Deborah Newman. A lot of people know me as the former director of Thrive, a nonprofit in Bozeman, Montana.
Yeah.
But I am currently working. I have retired from that job, and I am currently working as a consultant for a group called Funders for Montana's Children. They are a group of foundations that have come together whose specific goal is to increase high quality, affordable childcare, so 0 to 3 childcare across the state. Those foundations, many of you know, include the Arthur M. Blank Foundation, the Denison Phyllis Washington Foundation, the O.P. and W.E. Edwards Foundation, the Mark Kelly Family Foundation, First Interstate Bank, Headwaters Foundation. So they've all come together, as you know, as many of you know, they fund across the state different types of projects, but they are together to address this early care shortage that's been characterized as all types of things, most recently as just the child care desert. So so what we have been doing, our key strategy is to interface and engage the private sector in Montana, the for-profit business sector. We know that they have many things to offer us, including creativity, strategy. They're great influencers. They're great at innovations in states across the country. They have been very instrumental in making great forward movement on all types of early childhood types of issues. And so that became our target group to find out what they knew about early childhood, what they thought about early childhood, and were they willing to come and help us strategize. So and I'll just do a brief update, and then we'll just definitely open up to any questions you have. So we have spoken to over 300, almost 350 independent business leaders in Montana across the state. We work very closely with the Federal Reserve Bank in Minneapolis, and I can tell you more about them later if you want to know, but they're a great partner with some very impressive economists who have been working for decades on return on investment in early childhood. And we have had conversations with over 300 business leaders to find out what they know about early childhood, what they think about things, and to share with them a lot of our Montana data and what Montana is doing. And so that's what we've been doing. So that's kind of maybe I'll stop there. Aaron, if you think that's appropriate, and I can say more later or whatever you think you want to know.
Great, thanks, Deb. Yeah, I think that might be a good start. So let's open it up for either if people have questions for Deb and more about the work she's doing, or about how to successfully engage businesses. You might have some good ideas. A lot of when I did my initial kind of Zoom calls with the ECC leads with all of you, I heard a lot of not exactly knowing how to effectively engage business communities sustainably. So I'm not sure, Deb, if you can speak to that, or if other people have other success stories or questions, etc. Let's just open it up.
You broke up there a little bit, Aaron. How to what?
Oh, shoot, sorry. How to, not necessarily and what to engage business communities on, but how to effectively and sustainably engage businesses.
Well, we spent a lot of time asking them a lot of questions. So we wanted to know what they knew. So maybe I'll start out with a few of these, and then if you would all add on, we'd love to keep the list of tactics going. We asked the business community, first of all, what did they know about early childhood? And we had already given them some information about what the experts say. And basically they told us they believe the experts, they believe the brain scientists, they believe the economists and the return on the investment information. And they want to be involved because it's the right thing to do in their communities. And they need to be involved because for the business community, this is a workforce issue, an economic workforce issue. So, and again, many of you are talking about this. There's new information about it all the time, but the lack of ability to get childcare, particularly early care, limits a person's ability to go back to work, and that's impacting employers from either attracting or retaining their workers. And it's a huge problem. Doubled up with the very low unemployment rate, it's really becoming a workforce issue and therefore an issue. So again, that's really our focus in terms of goals. But So we asked them what types of things motivated them to become involved in community efforts, let's say. And they said, well, they want to know what is the problem and what is a solution that is very likely to make a change. They said that a lot of times in their conversations in their local communities that the advocates, us, all of us, that what we have to tell them is too broad, and it is. Early childhood is a hugely broad field. It's what's happening developmentally, socially, emotionally, cognitively. It's how is that affected by poverty, by hunger, by ACEs, and so we describe to the world our viewpoint on all of the things that are problematic around early childhood, and business leaders leave the table kind of feeling like nobody could address those. It's too big, it's too broad, it's too much. So one of the things they told us really helps them is a real specific focus. Here's the problem. The one problem we've decided in this community that is the most critical starting point, and put all the energies around that with a really good, clear path to a solution that will make a difference. They want to win. They want to win. The other thing that they told us is that a lot of times when we talk, they don't know what we're talking about. And so, as we all know, we use acronyms beyond belief, and nobody understands those. But we also use words that kind of trigger them, like a word is initiative is one of the words that a few different businesses told us is a negative trigger for them. And I asked them why, and they said, well, because initiative to us means that they were going to spend a lot of time and probably a lot of money and have nothing to show for it 5 years later. So I have never heard that before, but I thought it was really interesting. Now, that's certainly not everybody, but I do believe there's a lot of words that we're unaware of that make them think that this is going to be a lot of more of nothing. So, so what we've done is we really studied how they language things, what they understand, what kind of irritates them, what is a better way to phrase it, because for funders for Montana's Children, one of our main goals is to go around and educate every business person that we can get to in Montana about the problem of early care for 0 to 3, quality early care for 0 to 3. We can't talk to them if they turn us off because we triggered something in them, or because we can't use terminology that they understand. So those are some of the things we did. What about you guys? What have you heard?
Deb, I have a follow-up before we go there. This is Ned, Ned Cooney, and good to hear your voice again.
Yes, you too.
My question is, have you found that simple, easy solution that they will buy into that will, affect other problems, or not necessarily solve the entire thing, but I'm not sure that exists yet. And that's what we've always struggled with here in the Flathead is, what are we asking the business people to do, or how do we want them to engage? Just knowing about the problem, that's good, but if it doesn't move them to action in some way, that doesn't really gain us anything. So have you found anything that appeals to them as a way that they can get involved and have the kind of leverage that they're looking for?
Well, I think it is whatever is the most compelling in their world. So for us, when Funders for Montana's Children started, we were 0 to 5 early childhood was a kind of our territory where we wanted to make an impact. After talking now almost 2 years with businesses, what we realized is where the rubber hits the road for them is when it's in early care, 0 to 5, when because there is none of it or a lack of it or too little of it in their communities, they can't get people to come to work. So that has a very direct relevance to them. It's a beautifully double-edged sword. It has the benefit of doing the right thing for the community, right thing for families, right thing for children, but it also has this workforce economic thing that if they don't address, their businesses are going to fail. So it's like anything else when you're trying to get somebody interested in what you're doing, you have to find out where does it connect personally, relevantly with them. Now, that's not the only topic, and I think communities need to pick a thing. And again, when I worked in a local community, I attended all of the meetings where we, for 3 decades, where we talked about, you know, and what was important in early childhood. And unfortunately, we could never come to a consensus about what do we want to start with. So I think if every community could come up with a consensus about this is the starting point. It's not the most important. It's not, you know, it's not, we haven't chosen it because we like the people who are working on it. We chose it because we can get some consensus around it. It's a starting point, and really then articulate that to the businesses because they do care about what's going on in the community with families. And then once you identify it, I think, you know, the other thing they said to us is not only do we have to identify it, let's say it's social emotional development, or let's say it's parents support for parents of young children, or home visiting, or whatever. Then we need to really be able to articulate a very clear path that we're going to take that will provide solutions. The other thing that I've really realized in the 2 years that I've been working specifically with the private sector is that they haven't said this to us out straight, but it's very apparent that what we do is we ask them for money. We might ask them to come to our community coalition meeting. We definitely ask them if there's a piece of legislation, if that's what we're interested in, to call their legislators and ask them to support whatever. We rarely ask them. It's always like at the last hour, and we really rarely ask them to help us strategize from the beginning. And what I have found out is they have incredibly unique leadership talents, unique innovations, a unique way of viewing the world, that if we actually brought them in the very beginning, they would be able to direct us, A, to solutions that work, and B, they would direct us in how to engage the rest of the private sector, because they know them, they are them. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I do. That's a good idea.
I also want to chime in from a question from Sarah Crum. She's asking if there's a report or paper for the qualitative research that you were citing, Deb.
Which research?
Sarah, do you want to chime in? I don't want to get it wrong.
Yeah, just these one-on-one interviews that you've hosted, like 350 business conversations. Has that been written into some sort of report that we could look over?
I have a summary of the interviews that we did. So we didn't interview 300 people. We've had conversations with 300 people that include a presentation on the brain science, the Montana data, the return on the investment, the economic implications. But I do have a summary. It's been a while now, but I do have a summary of the initial business interviews that we did. And then in the conversations, sometimes there's something we learn new that we hadn't heard in the beginning, or most often we hear what we heard in the beginning, which is that we advocates present the problem as so large that they feel that nobody could make a difference, things like that. We hear that over and over again. So I do have a summary of our original key points of things we learned in the
Is that something you could share with the group, Deb?
Yeah.
Of course, yes. I'd be happy to.
Great. Maybe if you could send that to Sally, since we know that you have her email address. You probably have others. And then Sally can send it out to the group.
I will do that.
Great. Any other questions for Deb, or just ideas or topics to present?
Deb, can you come and speak to a community by request, or how do we get you? Is it a presentation, or how do we get you up here and connecting to our business community?
Well, we are scheduling presentations. So if you let us know. So we like to present to the business communities, and since that's our target group. So what we've been doing is we haven't presented to any local chambers yet, but we have presented to just different gatherings, whatever the natural business leader gathering is in your community. We've done that in Helena. We've done that in Bozeman. We've done that in Billings. We also will come if it's a industry association like the High Tech Association, or we're doing several presentations, one in Missoula, one in Kalispell, with the Human Resources Network. So if you have one of those groups that will invite us, then we will do our best to get there and to do a presentation. And we frequently bring with us folks from the Federal Reserve Bank in Minneapolis. And I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with them, but as I said, first of all, they have great credibility with the private sector. So a wonderful asset on our team, and they just have a lot of expertise on the whole economic workforce, return on investment type of topics. So send us an invite.
Is that through a website, or how do we get a hold of you?
Yep. Check out our website, fundersformontanaschildren.org. And you can definitely make a request for that through that. Or Sally, you can send them my phone number and my email if you wish, anybody who would like it, and it can come through that as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, Deb.
You're welcome.
It was good.
Thank you. At some point, I would love to hear, and I know you do monthly calls, or at least I believe I heard that you do monthly calls, but I really would love to hear that if someone were to ask the question of you all that represent your early childhood communities, what could you get consensus around? What one or two things would rise to the top in early childhood that you could get consensus around? I would love to know information like that, because as I travel across the state, I think the business community wants to know whether there is consensus, whether there's any consensus. Is there one thing that rises to the top?
I wonder if, Sarah, can I put you on the spot? Since we have still some time, I wonder if that's a great question. And I know that there's a lot of business engagement in the Bozeman area. Deb, you mentioned you've been there before for presentations to the business community. So is there something that you can think of, Sarah, around in the Bozeman area?
Yeah, so I am the Child Success Coordinator for Greater Gallatin United Way, and facilitate the ECC Council through this position. So it's a unique position because United Ways have traditionally been about collective impact and that business-to-business partnership. They do a lot of workplace campaigns. So I have a foundation of what they've already been working on in the community for decades. My background is public relations, and specifically I've worked with a lot of organizations around strategic communications. So we can, one thing maybe later in this call, we can talk about some practicals of how to network with businesses, like what are those first steps. But me and what I care about is the message, like what are you going to say that really connects the audience. And sometimes we have to kind of rethink about what the problem is. Like for instance, we all know that there's a shortage in childcare, right? That is a practical problem we talk a lot about. It's a conceptual problem around that too, and a political problem. And we need to understand all three before really kind of diving into some of these solutions. So the conceptual problem, like for me as an example, would be it's all about the parents. So these businesses don't typically see themselves fitting into a solution because they feel like there's this myth, right, that traps us into believing that it's the family problem. I brought a lot of notes to kind of unpack this. So I can take just a few minutes if you're interested. That like family bubble mentality It's an idea that child development and children's development depends really on the parents. And I think we message ourselves to there's an attention of like it really traps us in solutions. So like, for instance, like we need to then take to businesses in a way that shows the value of prosperity, right? That would be the opposite of orienting ourselves and talking about this issue. Like there is a very powerful directive and guiding attitude, right, about prosperity, and like like you could reframe it as like positive childhood development is a foundation for community development and economic development. Capable children become the foundation of prosperous and sustainable societies. So when we move from it's just a problem of the family to you benefit as a business, you invest in that 0 to 5 range, whether it's childcare, this or that, and there's huge economic impact that we know comes from investments too. Does that make sense in kind of understanding that concept? Like that's a very little example, and I feel like there's a lot more we could talk about in understanding that. But
no, for sure. And I think that's what we were talking about earlier, that the more you can relate it to their world, this is a benefit to businesses because this is an economic issue. The more whatever it is, whatever you pick as your community, you settle on 1 or 2 major things. The more you can relate it to their world, that's a good example of that, the importance of that.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not what to say, but also what to avoid saying. Like you were talking about earlier, like understanding their language, I thought was really important. But also like avoiding, like when we talk about like need for interventions or individual stories that reinforce those notions of like individual responsibility and that like family autonomy, we're kind of dampening people's understanding of the collective nature of this issue. And telling system level stories, stories that position systems and position social structures rather than these like episodic stories that isolate examples, kind of, I think, help push us in a different direction, right? Again, that collective stake instead.
I like that a lot, Sarah. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. You go ahead.
I'm just wondering if there's something you can share more around that. You said you had notes, and I don't know if that's just kind of a brain dump, but I think any help we can get with language is great. And I think the way you're approaching it opens up a different kind of lens on the issues we're asking them to get involved in, and even how they might get involved. So if there's something you can share, that'd be great.
Okay, make it tangible. I mean, the one-on-ones of networking are, like be where the businesses are. Where are they meeting? Where are those conferences? Use your personal network to meet with these folks and ask them those questions of, like, what are their needs with their employees? How do they see, like when you start asking these open-ended questions and really listening, you can start feeling those spaces of where that buy-in connects with them. And when you listen and hear what their problems are that they're struggling with employees, which we all know, it's childcare, it's retention, it's employee satisfaction. And we have solutions to help them through that too. But you can't always offer that without building that relationship first. Listening to where they're at, listening to what their problems are. I think that's a big step in figuring out what that message is.
A thing that I've used successfully throughout my career is I call it 100 people. And these are 100 people that know stuff that I don't know, but I need to know. And I've literally had 100 of those in my lifetime, maybe more. Is that as you're all talking, and we've used our own business play is that really just to ask them, when we're thinking about this, is not to ask them to buy in, jump on board or whatever, but use their more even basic skills and say, when we present a concept like this, what do you hear? And what would be a better reframe? How do we reframe that so that your colleagues know what we're talking about and get excited? It would be fun to have like a little committee in every community of 3 people, your friends who own businesses or your friend's friend who owns businesses or whatever, that could give you that insight. I think it would be a great way to do it. I think we can, talk about the generals that we know, but the generalities that we know, but it could be fun to have a little advisory group in each of your committees that were all business people that could tell you what they heard after you presented something to them.
I think this is Stephanie from Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies. I think that's a really good feedback, Deb, that I just want to reiterate is asking folks for feedback, maybe not right after, but, in a thank you, and then saying, what did you hear, and learning how to hone this message. I think both you and Sarah are really focusing in on, this message needs to be succinct and it needs to be, that impacts them at that economic or that business level. So we get better at doing that by hopefully having good partners who will give us that feedback.
Yep, for sure.
I wonder, June, are you still on the call? Let's see, can we find
Yes, I am.
Great. I know that you do a lot of great work in engaging the whole community around at the table at your Early Childhood Coalition. I don't know if you have any insights or strategies that you've used.
Well, I've been doing this since 2005, working with the communities on coalitions, being able to engage them. And you do need the businesses there. It's very important. And my husband and I, we have a business. And however, we've been involved with coalitions since 2005. So we know how to get people to the table. We know how to get them excited and interested. And it's the whole community. Besides businesses, we have the moms, the pops, the grandparents. We have the churches, faith-based, ministerial association, and also tribal programs. And a lot of times, oftentimes people think that coalitions on a reservation, that should just be the program directors and their staff. That doesn't work. You can't get the work done. You need lots of volunteers. You need lots of interest and a wide spectrum of the community. You need elders. You need everyone coming to help resolve and provide solutions on how you can build healthier communities, build greater economic development. And I also work with People's Partners for Community Development. And so we are helping young people in getting grants for them to put together business plans and start their businesses. And yes, they do have difficulty with childcare, and we do not have any more childcare centers at our college, in our community, and the same way for Colstrip that's neighboring us and Ashland. There are no childcare centers left. So that is difficult when moms want to go to work and they have nowhere to take their children. So we rely through the Northern Cheyenne Children's Services Center, where they pay moms to watch children in their homes so they can generate some income and watch the children as well. And they do screen them to ensure that the home is a safe environment. So a lot of different ways, but it is tough. But when people come to the table, they're excited, they're enthusiastic, they want to take part as long as you have a good strategic plan and they can be involved.
I would love to hear more from you about, what specific things the private sector has rallied around and how they contributed to solving, contributed to solving. I would always love to hear those stories.
Thank you. And regarding the private sectors, it just takes time to build those. And being able to have funding to be able to have activities, events, even getting people to come to a focus group or doing surveys. A lot of our people on the reservation are a little shy and do not trust people giving them a survey to fill out as to, what are their needs, what is their situation in their family. They sometimes don't want to share that information. So you have to build trust in order to get them to participate and engage in activities.
I know one thing in your community, June, I believe, is really the community coming together and business sector coming together and law enforcement, et cetera, around human trafficking. Is that right?
Yes.
And I wonder if that is because so that's an example of how were you able to bring all these people to the table? Was it a sense of urgency? Was it data? Was it how did you use to excite people to get to the table around that topic?
On human trafficking, we attended, now this is interesting, we went to another Best Beginnings Coalition meeting over in Hardin, and we heard Georgia Cady from the Tumbleweed program give a presentation on human trafficking. And when Kay and I, Kay is our family spirit supervisor for our home visiting program, when we heard it, we knew we had to get her to our reservation. And so we brought her over, and several of the different groups were there, and they were very interested in us just reaching out to the community as quick as we could. So we just invited the whole community, put out an announcement, and she came and did a presentation in our gymnasium at the Boys and Girls Club. And we had over 80 attend for our very first one. And from that, the momentum just started with the human trafficking and knowing how essential it was that we needed to get a billboard up. So we ran a contest. But the program from the Tumbleweed program, they had a grant on national level. And their grant person came out and met with our entire coalition from Washington, D.C. And she was a human trafficking specialist. And so the momentum just gained, and then we had a drug endangered children training that we pulled all the funds we could from all the different departments, businesses everywhere, in order to put on $11,000 training and bring in the professionals to do a 2-day training. And we had 97 people the first day and 100 people the second day. This is all day. And we even gave a college credit for it through our Chief Del Knife College. So we had everyone, law enforcement, tribal council, leaders, businesses, college, BIA, social workers, and community people, elders. So it really started to catch on that, we have a problem with drug endangered children, we have a problem with human trafficking, and we need to be able to look at this in our community strongly so that we are able to find solutions and be able to combat this, eradicate it from our communities, and provide a lot of human trafficking awareness. Education is the big thing. If you can educate the community, then you can heal a community.
Well, it sounds true like you had a lot of the key important elements in that story you just told us. That is a problem that's very relevant and real to the community that rose to the surface. You know, this is something we need to focus on as a community. And so you had all of the things to pull together. You had resources, experts to bring in, and resources. You had a pathway to a solution. So those are all the things we talked about earlier that really do engage the private sector and the community at large.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Nice work.
Thank you.
Deb, we don't want to eat up the rest of your afternoon. Do you have to step off of this call now?
I have a few more minutes. Anything else I can hear or tell me about, or I'll tell you anything you want to know?
Okay, people. You got 3 minutes left with Deb. Plus maybe, you know, her coming into your communities. But any other examples, any other questions? I do want to share, while people are thinking of questions, I'm going to share, try to share anyway, my screen with the website, Deb's website, Funders for Montana Children. Can everyone, I think people can see this? Just scrolling down the main page of, or the Who We Are page, there's a Childcare in Montana recent news, supporting Montana families and caring for the state's most precious resource. I think this is what I just clicked on that had some great statistics around.
It's a great resource.
Yeah. Basically helping to present the urgency around this childcare deserts in Montana. So there's the cost of childcare, and there's some great graphics and charts, and sorry if I'm making people dizzy by scrolling, but it's definitely recommend checking it out. Actually just looked over it right before this call. So again, that's just on the website.
And this report was done by an economist at the Department of Labor and Industry in Montana. An excellent report that has a lot of information on all of the counties in Montana and the percentage of availability of childcare they have. We've used this quite a bit with businesses, particularly from rural communities who are very they're very engaged by these types of charts and information that they can take to their communities and talk with other business leaders about the data on the problem, the supporting data on the problem.
Great. So I encourage everyone to check this out. Okay. Anything else? Any last questions for Deb?
All right. Well, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to listen to what's happening across the state at the local level. Keep up the good work, and I hope we get a chance to talk again.
Thank you so much, Deb.
Thanks, Deb.
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have about 45 minutes left to our call, and I know we have some legislative updates and some general updates from our partner organizations. Does anyone have any lingering questions or information to share about engaging the business community? Like we said, Sally will send out Deb's information. And as I mentioned, there's great tools on their website, Funders for Montana Children. If you just Google it, you'll find the website. Anything else that anyone wants to share? And thanks for Sarah and June for sharing some examples.
Yeah, I could add a little bit more. So this last fall, we did 100 conversations in 100 days, and I was not a part of the team that hosted these conversations, but it was with businesses, half of which were ones we had already established relationships with. The others were just cold calls, honestly, just to see if they'd be interested in learning more about United Way and if we could kind of learn more about what they're doing and some of their needs are within the community. Through those conversations, a lot of people talked about childcare and knowing that it was somewhat of a need, but still found that a lot of employees don't communicate the full extent of what the problem is for them personally. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but we were able to kind of understand a little bit more and be more direct about that message about what the actual problem is in our community. And found a lot of really strong responses when we started talking about some solutions or possibilities or what they'd want to be involved with. Like charity around that issue is definitely not something they really wanted to join, right? It's like communicate, we walk away from these conversations understanding like they really care about if they make an investment like this, it needs to affect their bottom line. They need to see direct impact to their employee retention and employee satisfaction and recruitment. And there is lots of data around that too, so we can definitely use that. But like that's the kind of things they want to talk about and hear. Like, yeah, they may make a donation or this or that, but when it comes to that problem, it didn't feel like they, like finding that space of them wanting to take responsibility for it seemed like more of a stretch. Does that make sense? So I don't know. We've done an economic impact study on our Kids Link after school program in the Gallatin County area, or kind of a larger area. There's 32 sites that we run. And in a fundraiser that we're doing now, we're finding a lot of people, business leaders, really love this data. Like when their employees are involved in this program and their kids are in this after school program for like 2 hours, like here's how many workforce hours they've earned. Here's the economic impact to our county, which is $54 million. It's a huge impact when employees have just those 2 extra hours of really quality childcare. I don't know if there are other studies that link high quality care to economic impact. I think maybe I think Deborah, when you were showing Deborah's work on her website, maybe some of that shows, but more studies like that, hard numbers that really show the connection to the bottom line will be really helpful. And I'd be very open to finding those. If you guys find those resources, I'd love to dig into that.
Great. Yeah, I wonder if that resource has some of that information, but that would be a great thing to explore. And I know that that's, I just jotted that down too, Sarah, because 0 to 5, we've got a lot of our local collaborative coordinators, Monty being one of them, that are definitely going to be having these conversations with the business sector to bring them to the table, and examining the impacts, more of the impacts, economic impacts, so we can have that on our radar for studies or data to share with this group. Do you, any chance you have any frameworks or your survey questions from those 100 conversations?
I think we could probably pass some of those along. Mostly it's very conversational, very casual conversations. I think you probably could do a more strategic study with them if you're wanting more of the research, but for us it was more just building those relationships, kind of following the lead of where these business leaders were, what they were struggling with, what they cared about, and kind of an exploration, really.
Great. Okay. Well, yeah, if you think that there's any survey questions or anyone in this group that could be beneficial to everyone else, it sounds like we're all thinking about the business sector and wanting to engage, but are just looking for the right avenues. So anything that we could be sharing on this group, just email to each other. Sounds wonderful. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, well, could move on to legislative updates if we're feeling satisfied with this conversation. What do you think, Sally and Steph?
I'm ready for legislative updates.
Let's do it. Take it away, Steph.
Woo! So again, this is Stephanie from Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies. I always try and do this when people can't see my face, so they know who the voice coming at them is. So we're nearing the end of the legislative session. It will definitely be over by the end of this month, if not sooner, actually. But biggest news for today, HB 658, which was the final iteration of the Medicaid expansion bill, passed third reading on the Senate floor today, with a vote of 28 to 22. yesterday was a pretty big day to get a second reading and was the first passing vote. Today was a transmittal due date. If things weren't coming out of one house, or what weren't coming out of the House or the Senate today to be tossed back over to the opposite body, they would have essentially died. So Medicaid expansion did pass the Senate today. The next move for that bill, which is HB 658 at this point, is to go back over to the House. The House will need to approve the amendments that were added to the bill. I will say that the final version of this expansion bill is very much an example of a compromise bill. Democrats came in with, just a straight extending the sunset or the end of the program with no changes. But Republicans were really very staunch on adding work requirements. And through a lot of negotiation and hard work, they were able to find a way to get work requirements in there, but also to build in protections to evaluate who is removed from Medicaid through those work requirements and making sure that those aren't too onerous. Also built in a lot of exceptions, so permanent exceptions to those work requirements as well. So yeah, if your legislator participated in this, which I would say all of them had, but they were, thank them for their hard work on at least that bill. So after it's passed out of the House, which it's expected to, that'll hopefully become a law. So is there any questions specifically on the Medicaid expansion stuff? All right, seeing none. So just to give some updates on a couple of pieces of legislation that we've talked about previously, and these are both the preschool or pre-K bills. So HB 225 was the governor's preschool bill. This started out with a really great reception in early February in the House Education Committee. No action was taken on that for nearly 2 months. And then on the 27th of March, it was tabled, which is essentially killed at this point. At the same time that bill was being stalled out in the Education Committee, Representative Eric Moore was working on building kind of a Republican rebuttal bill to preschool. And that was HB 755. It had a very brief life. It was introduced, I think, on the 25th of March and then was tabled 2 days later on the 27th. That bill was a really interesting bill in the sense that it created a whole nother standalone entity to manage pre-K. So that again that failed. So at this point, there's no live preschool legislation that I am aware of. That being said, there is some places where we can work to, or there is some people that are still advocating for early childhood education. And one of those places is a study bill. So HJ, so it's House Joint Resolution, which is a little funky, but this is HJ 60. And so it's a study bill that basically asks to have kind of an interim committee or a study committee on early childhood education. A lot of work for large pieces of legislation goes on outside the session, as you might imagine. And so this is a place where early childhood advocates such as yourselves can find a voice in a legislative process outside of just session. The bill was introduced by Kathy Kelker on the 12th, and it has a hearing tomorrow at 3 p.m. in the House Education Committee. So just as a little primer on study bills, there will be a lot of study bills that are passed, and the real place where people can help with process if they'd like is in contacting legislators who will be ranking all of those study bills. So even if the bill is, is voted as a pass, there is still some outside advocacy that's necessary for early childhood education, for that study bill to be ranked and then acted upon. So that bill actually came out of the Montana Advocates for Children committee, and I would encourage everyone to check it out. 0 to 5.
Yeah, I just pulled it up.
Yeah, 0 to 5 has a great little landing page on that, and I will include that in the minutes.
Great.
And they give you some really, it's really easy step-by-step advice on how to, help with this effort if you're so inclined. But it's on the 0 to 5 website right now, Early Childhood Study Bill, and I'll make sure to send that link out so you can see, what exactly that'll look like. But, we know that, I know that at least this session and last session, and I believe even the session before that, there has been a lot of work to build or fund a pre-K program in our state, and the efforts have fizzled. So the one good thing about that is most pieces of large legislation take several attempts and take several legislative sessions, and so it's great that those efforts have been made, because a lot of those legislators are returning and they have that basic understanding or education possibly about what pre-K looks like in our state and about what's possible. So hopefully with a study bill, we can all convene, and the expertise that is already available in our state will hopefully be accessed, and we can have some really influential input in that process. So that's all I have for legislative updates. Is there anything else? I will just say right now, I have not done a good job of following the budget. And so I'm not up to date on a lot of those things. But if anybody has any questions or specific asks, I'm happy to do the legwork and get you back an update on that. Okay.
Thanks, Steph. And as I mentioned before, if anyone has a screen, I actually pulled up 0to5.org and scrolled down. It's on the news page, and there's you can find the bill and then identify your local representatives, and there's a bunch of great talking points. You can email them too, and there's basically a script that you can use on the website. So all the work has been done. You just got to make that call before 3 p.m. tomorrow. And that's what I'll say there. Okay, great. Thanks, Steph. I'll share a quick little 0 to 5 update. Or are there any Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies updates, Steph?
Yeah, you go ahead and do yours, and then I'll come back.
Okay. Actually, I think this is pretty relevant to our business conversation. I'm going to share my screen yet another time. If for those of you who are on a computer can see, it's a conference or a summit, I should say, that 0 to 5 is helping to organize as well, alongside the Montana Department of Labor and Industry, National Governors Association, the Department of Health and Human Services, and the Governor's Office. It's called Child Care Solutions to Support Your Workforce. So it's a summit specifically for business leaders. We're all welcome to attend, but really it's a place for businesses in Montana to come and discuss innovative and attainable child care solutions to attract and retain the highest quality employees. As Sarah mentioned, employee retention, it all comes to that bottom line is economic incentives for businesses to engage and get involved with us. So it's free, and it's a day long in Helena, May 29th. There's registration, but please, please, please pass this on to your business contacts. We'd love for some great representation. If you're if you are already engaged with certain businesses or hoping to, it could be a really great introduction to why this all matters. And talking about bringing in experts, there'll be some great panel discussions. I know I can't remember if Kristen Lundgren is on the call, but she's on the planning committee for this summit. It should be really great. So I encourage you all to pass that along. And Steph, I'll send you the link with more information, registration, so you can send that out in the minutes. But this is also on the 0 to 5 website.
Awesome.
Any questions about that?
Okay.
Doesn't sound like it. Okay, that's the biggest 0 to 5 update that I'll share. Cool. Got going on. Anything from you, Sally? Oh, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. So one of the great things that's exciting about working with the state and working with all these cool collaborative partners is there's a lot of great work happening, and it seems like more and more it's happening together. So the summit was certainly one of the things that I wanted to say too, but I agree. I think this is just exciting pieces of work coming down the pike. I do just want to reference again the Best Beginnings Advisory Council. Again, we will support 2 people from every coalition coming to the council. We think it will be huge. It will be the first opportunity for folks to start to hear information about the statewide needs assessment. And it's been, I think, with the help of all the coalitions and all of our partners out across the state, it's been a big success. I think she's thrilled with the amount of responses we're getting back, as well as the attendance for the local summits and that's not the word I'm thinking for, but focus groups. That's what I was thinking of. And so we're really excited to hear some of that information. So really that's just it for the most part. I'm kind of excited to hear about from the coalition. So thanks, guys.
Great. I'm excited too. That'll be my first Best Beginnings Advisory Council meeting, and I'm looking forward to seeing everyone who's there.
The biggest fear is that we're set for 125, which is way larger than normal. And I've asked for chairs too. So everybody will be prepared to sit around the edges. We'll see. We have some students coming from one of the universities to watch in the morning. I mean, we just have some, it's one of those when you plan a meeting, you're terrified that you're not going to have cases for everybody. But the good part is early childhood people have good spirits. So we'll figure it out.
That's great. Looking forward to it. Well, are there any other updates, questions for the committee, things going on that you'd love for us all to know about or engage in? I'll leave a minute for anyone to share anything while I pull up our agenda again. Feel free to chime in.
This is Stephanie from HMHB. I'll just throw out a couple more updates or kind of reminders on what some of the stuff we're doing. We're continuing working with partners on the Safe Sleep Initiative, Infant Safe Sleep Initiative. And so we started out with a lot of home visiting services back before the end of the year and getting those safe sleep kits out into the communities. Currently, we're focusing on agencies or entities that serve primarily or a large number of Native American folks. And so if you know of anybody that might be interested or is providing safe sleep education and serves a lot of Native Americans, we would love to be put in contact with them in order to get some more of these safe sleep kits out. Our next program there, we'll be working with Child and Family Services Division to provide some support with them as well. We're really looking forward to that opportunity and hopefully linking them back to some of you all and other folks in the state who are already doing safe sleep work. Just this last month, the Montana Healthcare Foundation announced 6 more sites that will be participating in the Perinatal Behavioral Health Initiative. That is a program where they're bringing mental health or behavioral health specialists right into OB offices. They started out by just focusing on substance use or unhealthy substance use, and have really expanded that to look both at substance use and then also maternal mental health overall. That is a very exciting program. A couple of the new hospitals that will be on there is the Community Hospital of Anaconda, Deb Cooney. And then also, let's see, St. Pete's in Helena as well as coming on board, and a provider in Bozeman, and then also Livingston, Billings, and then the Blackfeet Clinic is also coming on board. So really exciting stuff in terms of improving perinatal care in our state. Yeah, so hope you all are doing well, and yeah, we're excited to keep building up the collaborations between the early childhood coalitions and the other systems that are serving kids and families in our state.
Awesome. You know, I'm also wondering, we're trying something new starting this month for these calls. It just hit me, reminded me that that we are asking for folks to provide updates rather than in this call, because there's so much great work going on, and sometimes it's hard, definitely for me, to process it all. It'd be nice for it to be written down so we can be sharing that with each other. I'm wondering, did Steph or Sally, did you get any blurbs from any community?
Yeah, I got one blurb. And you know, kind of when I sent out that agenda email, I put it as a question, and just to see if that was, if our, if the group was feeling that, or if they felt like that, that sharing time was really important, or if it was just a written sent in summary would be something that would work as well. So let's see.
Got it. Okay. So
yeah, what does the group kind of feel in terms of being able to provide those updates still, but maybe being able to allow for more discussion time during our calls?
This is Anna in Missoula. I think it's a great idea to do the written for the phone calls. I think the updates do get a little overwhelming when we're not able to see each other eye to eye. I do really like them when we have a big chunk of time for in-person meetings. I think hearing about it, we can have more conversation, but on the phone, I really like the idea of written updates.
Awesome. Thanks, Anna.
This is Deb in Anaconda, and I agree with that.
Woohoo. All right. Well, cool. From here on out, I think the process, I'll send out the agenda, or one of us, Sally or Aaron or I, will send out the agenda the week before and do that call for updates, and then compile those as a digest, and send them out the Monday before we meet, if that works for everyone. And I also think that there's an added benefit, for folks that not everybody can be on every call all the time. We wear a lot of hats. So even if you're not going to be on the call, send in that update, and then it still, keeps that sharing and that connection going, even if you miss a month. So yeah, I'll make sure and highlight that in next month's email and call those. And yeah, hopefully that works out for everybody.
Thanks, Steph. Great. Well, the last thing on our list is a topic for next month. So for the folks remaining on the call, if you can't see my screen, I pulled it up. I shared my screen with you about a topic for next month. And a list that we've assembled several months ago are kindergarten readiness, building systems. So kind of what does that look like? Engaging small communities in this work, successful models of that, and best practices. Oh, and then programming best practices. Pros and cons of setting up the coalition as a 501c3, and just a general how our coalition's set up, in discussing that. And then if anyone has any other topics that they'd want to share, chime in, or any other presenters, information that could be beneficial to this group. So if we could, I can happy to say those again if anyone needs me to, but if folks want to chime in, with other topics or one from that list that they're really excited about discussing next month, then we could, if you could say it out loud or type it in the chat feature, that'd be great. And I can read them again. Kindergarten readiness, building systems, engaging small communities in this work, programming best practices, pros and cons of setting up your coalition as a 501c3. And that's actually the list that we have.
Hey, Erin, this is Brenda in Butte.
Hi, Brenda.
I'd be interested in engaging the smaller communities. Like in our county, we have, of course, one large community, but then we have 3 or 4 smaller ones, and we'd really like those folks to be involved. So I was interested in that topic.
Great. Thank you, Brenda. Actually, just thinking that Monty and Amy, if you're still on the call, you are having a lot of conversations about that too with this 0 to 5 work of how to engage. The county is so spread out and people are kind of doing their own things, and how do we bring people to the table?
I would second that.
This is Ned. Love that idea too. I would like maybe a follow-up conversation about today's call and the business community part, because I still am not really sure what we would even ask business people to do. You know, like where would we want their engagement in what ways? If it's to be at the table and help us figure it out, that's great. But if other people have more specific kind of strategy and leverage, it'd be really good to talk that through.
Great. Okay, thanks, Ned. And I wonder if, I'm wondering if maybe Ned, if it sounds like Sarah's got a lot of ideas, if you guys could set up a phone call. I don't know if that would be helpful, but just an idea that just entertained of, because it sounds like Sarah's got a lot of resources. Or Sarah, I'm happy to give you a call and we can think about, since you've done a lot of work around this, what could be useful for the bigger group. So, okay, let's keep that on the forefront. That sounds like, Sarah, you're willing to do that. Maybe set up a phone call with Ned or to continue that conversation. It might be, like I said, maybe a good starting place too is to, that summit that's coming up on May 29th is to prime your business community for learning more about this topic. So that could be a good starter too. But thanks for that, Ned. We'll keep that at the forefront.
Thanks.
Okay, well, feel free to chime in the chat. It looks like we're leaning towards engaging smaller communities. And Steph, if you could wait to send out minutes until after I get this recording, I'll send you that and some other resources.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay, I think if we're done, then we can head out. Thanks everyone for your time this month. See many.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm jumping off. Bye, everyone. Actually, I'll stay on for a little bit to see if anyone has any lingering questions. Okay, heading out.